We live?
Yeah.
We live?
We are live.
Live.
What's up, folks? Welcome to another episode of Monday Night Live on the 10 Horse Monty YouTube channel. It's good to see everybody in here.
It's been a while.
It's
For
been
me.
a while, man. Yeah, you were off last week, weren't you?
Well, it was a little dicey.
Snowy, wasn't it? Let's move this
icy.
thing over here.
Ooh.
So, all right.
There we go.
Been rolling.
I feel like we're like right in it.
So you see the hat here. This is Hook and Needle. We are going to be doing a giveaway a little bit later. Dustin, I met Dustin at the Collinsville Sports Show, and he just started a new apparel company. 1st of January, I believe. And he wanted to be involved with the live stream. Said, sure, 100%. He's going to be on here a little bit later, just in the comments. He's working right now. So we're going to be doing a giveaway for a hoodie. He's got a bunch of sweet stuff. Go check out his Facebook site, Hook and Needle. He's also got pretty good little YouTube channel, Hook and Needle TV. I don't know if you've seen that video, but you need to see it. He did like a poor man's mount bracket thing like we did.
Really?
Yeah, but it's just mounted directly. He doesn't have the ram mount.
Okay.
It's just mounted straight to the
Is it like over the pedal?
It's that kind of mount, but he used it just on the side.
Okay.
And
Yeah, I actually thought about doing one of those. I just the way everything's set up on my front end, it doesn't work out that way. But he's a tattoo artist, right?
he's a killer tattoo artist. Yeah. He does he works out of St. Louis, somewhere in the St. Louis area. All that information's on his Facebook page, but his work is pretty phenomenal. Those guys are unbelievable. I don't see how they do that. I mean, I certainly can't do that. I've got a couple tattoos. We were just talking about that a while ago, but mine are old. I mean, the ones on my arm, they look like that Chinese spy balloon. They're just kind of faded together, you know?
Yeah. Well, I know you and Ron were talking about that this weekend of getting matching neck tattoos, but
we're still
debating on
still thinking about it.
On a design.
Yeah. Like I love Uncle Ron. On the side of my neck. Yeah. Speaking of Ron, he's going to be on here in just a second. Yeah. You never know, man.
I actually got to see Ron this weekend.
Yeah.
I went over there. I made a delivery. We'll let Ron disclose the delivery. It looks like he might be drinking said delivery. He's holding something up at least. So you want to bring him in?
Let's bring him in. All right. What's going on, man?
What's going on, guys?
What? You up for
tattoos?
A tattoo? Let me turn you up. Okay, I can hear you now.
Here we go.
Good deal.
You hear me?
Yeah, everything good on your end?
Yeah, fine.
It's clear as a bell over here.
Excellent.
Good.
Excellent. Hey,
usually my internet's terrible.
Write down a number.
All right,
You're gonna just pick a random page? Okay, got it. All right, we got the giveaway number, and everybody knows how the giveaway. Was that what it was?
Mm-mm.
That.
Yep.
Okay, gotcha.
Yep. We're running a little behind this evening, so sorry, guys.
It's gonna smooth out here shortly. We got that down. Put this right here. We got a bunch of stuff to go through, guys. So I want to start out with, this is something I was going to do last week, but it never presented itself. But I was kind of going to do a new thing. It's maybe not be every week, but every other week, called What's in My Mailbox. And so what's in my mailbox applies. How that's going to work is what I've got in my mailbox over the last week or two. And I got a couple things I want to share with you guys out there. So I got some new swim baits from Hawgz Custom Baits. He's been pouring a bunch of different colors. Let me pull one of these out. I've got a smoking red, which is this one right here. I've got some pretty cool shad colors too. They're in my John boat somewhere. I tried to find them, but I don't know, man. I got so much crap in there right now. I need to do a little house cleaning in there. I keep piling stuff in there. But this is just a little swimmer. He's calling it the Pro Swim Bait. This is a 3.8. I think he has these in 3.8, 3.3, and 2.8. Smoking red. So that's that smoky color. It's got some red glitter in there. This is something that A-rigs, also on the back of a bladed jig, like a bluegill colored bladed jig, or a shad colored bladed jig. swim jig. Got a lot of multi-purposes, or just throw it on an underspin or on a ball head. So that's a 3.8. And then he's also got, let's see, what else did I get? Some 3.3s and smoke, which I really like smoke.
That's a good, like,
smoke is like, I used to throw a smoke grub all the time and I got away from it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, when's the last time you threw a grub just period?
I haven't, and we need to.
Exactly.
So that's a little bit smaller, 3.3.
That's a good color too. That's like a universal.
Yeah, it's all around. It just kind of, that smoke just kind of takes on whatever color skirt you have on the bait, kind of blends in. So you can slap some chartreuse there on the tail if you want some contrast. But these are really good little baits. I mean, look at that.
Super limp.
Yeah, they got plenty of action.
That looks good.
Yeah, it's a good little bait.
So
I've been throwing them around here and there.
Do you ever like put a little orange throat on it?
No, but that's a good idea.
I mean,
real good idea.
I mean, I remember we had Dion on, and he's like, if you're gonna take the time to do anything, do it right. You know, he talked about putting dots on crawfish pinchers. Just something I just thought about as we're sitting here talking about this, and we're in that winter time where color is super important on jerk baits, on any bait right now, especially if it's suspended bait or winding it real slow. So
no doubt.
Let's see. Got a couple other things I'll show you here. Let's put this back in its little house.
what else is in your mailbox?
What else is in my mailbox? So I've got I got a spinnerbait from Cellar Baits. Cellar Baits is a company, I want to say it's up near St. Louis, and I should know this. I thought it was on the package somewhere. Maybe it is.
I got you.
You got it?
I'm looking it up. You talk about spinnerbait.
Tennessee. Anyway, little quarter-ounce spinnerbait. I like this thing. This is something, I probably won't be throwing this around until the fall, but I like that. It's nice and small when the shad are small in the fall. This is something I'm going to be throwing around. It's got those, like a really small, looks like probably like a size 3 willow leaf on there. Got a gold and a silver. Got that kind of prism colored white. You know, it's definitely a shad and a good shad looking bait. And it's got a really long hook too that sticks back there a little bit further. So those fish that are kind of short striking, maybe you'll snatch them. Thin wire. I don't know how many fish are going to be able to get out of this, but it's going to have plenty of action when it is up and running.
That looks to me like it would be good during the shad spawn.
I would think so. Yeah, you're right. Yep. So that's coming up before too.
May-ish.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's true. And they also make A-rigs. I've showed these before, but this is their kayak. They have a couple different sizes. This is their 5x4, so it's a 4-inch. 4-inch arms on. Yeah, it's small. It's petite. It's made for throwing on the kayaks. It's probably similar to the Flash Mob Junior as far as size. Got about the same size blades, but good looking bait. It's more durable. It's definitely more heavy duty than the Flash Mob Junior. So this is a pretty cool little bait. I like that head on there. I'd probably put a swivel on there. But it's built right. It's heavy duty. So that's a small company. If you guys want to go support these guys, Cellar Baits, go out there and check them out. It's got good components on it. It's got really heavy duty snaps.
Yeah.
I don't know if you can see these snaps.
Everything about that is well built.
See if I can cover that. But those are not cheap snaps. Those are high dollar snaps. They're not gonna pull off. I threw the bigger one
I like
the other
the size
day.
Of that too.
Yeah, it's nice. It's good for throwing around docks and
stumps. You can throw some 2.5-inch swim baits on that for when it gets really that bite gets real tough.
Yeah, it's a good looking little bait. Like I said, I threw the bigger one and I like it. And one more thing that I got is, we've talked about this before, but this is the Crockett Gator Beaver Bug. And most of you have probably seen this. If you've seen any of my videos, you've probably seen me fishing this, but this is something that is very unique. It doesn't get a lot of airtime. and I think it really should. It's a sleeper bait is what I'm getting at, but it's got these kind of helgamite body, but it's got this paddle tail, this beaver tail. Now, this is something you can put this on a shaky head as is, probably a 1/4 ounce because it does have a lot of surface area, but 3/16 to 1/4 ounce, depending on your fall rate. But you can also put this on the back of a jig. It's a really good jig trailer. I just did a video where I was using this as a jig trailer, and I just pull all these little legs off all the way down and then just rig it up like this. But that little tail has got a lot of action to it. When you're reeling it in, it's thumping back and forth. And I haven't actually fished it, like cast it out and slow rolled it, but that's something I'm going to do when the water warms up. I've just been fishing it as a trailer. So this is something you could probably pitch it. You could put it on a 3/0 EWG with a light weight and Texas rig it. Jig trailer or shaky head is kind of the ways that I think that it would probably be most productive, but it's a pretty cool little bait. They've got a bunch of different colors. So something different to throw on your shaky head. And that's all that was in my mailbox for the last 2 weeks.
I got stuff sitting on my front porch. Does that count?
Yeah, I think so. It didn't actually all come in my mailbox, but
Fair enough.
yeah.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
So you posed a question. Favorite bait when the water reaches 55 degrees?
I'm looking forward to that.
No joke.
Same here. What do we got? No cotton says a buzz bait. Start the day and then end it with a jig. Doug's got a crankbait.
That doesn't surprise me.
I know Doug's dying to get. He went fishing a little bit, I think, the other day.
Yeah. Zapper HT.
Zapper HT. Crockett get a jig.
Oh, the buzz
Scotty
bait.
Edwards says buzz bait.
Jerry G.
What's up, Jerry? Good to see you on here. Popcorn in a movie.
We got some crankbaits.
Yeah, I got some crankers in here.
What's
up, Darius? Good to see you on here. Tom.
That 55, that's a little past crankbaiting for me.
55?
I mean, it's still crankbait weather, don't get me wrong, but I'm thinking about other things when it's
that starts open. That 55 starts opening up a lot.
Especially on a nice sunny day or right after a couple cold days and it's starting to warm up, and those big girls like to move up on that.
I think 55 opens up just about everything, for the most
Yeah,
part.
you could throw anything, depending on the lake and what type of stuff you're fishing. It could be anything.
You're still going to have guys throwing jerk baits at that temperature, and you're going to have guys that are flipping in 8 inches of water.
Mm-hmm.
So,
the
sky's the limit at that temperature.
All your winter stuff.
If I had my druthers, though, if I could just pick one just because it's fun, and little pre-spawn spinnerbait fishing, that's just a lot of fun.
Gabe's got one sitting right here that I really like.
Yeah,
nope, not that one. Keep going.
This one?
Nope. It's red.
Oh, crankbait?
DT.
This.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
that's one of my.
So that's kind of what we're going to touch on tonight, I think, is we've been talking a lot about winter stuff, and we're going to start transitioning into late winter and pre-spawn period, and kind of want to touch on some of the baits that, we're going to be leaning towards here. It'll be here before we know it. It really will. You can really tell the lengths of the days. I think it's been sunlight, and the sun's been out until like 5:30 or so. It's nice. It's nice. It's a big change, and this kind of happens. It's like a minute here and 2 minutes there, and next thing you know, you've picked up an extra 30-35 minutes, and life is good. So Ron, what's a bait that you look forward to throwing as soon as the water warms up and the fish get active? Obviously right now it's really been a jerkbait, a jig, an A-rig, and the spoon bite's kind of somewhat gone away. I guess you could throw a little swim bait and an underspin, but when that water temperature raises enough to where you're not limited to just those wintertime baits, what's that first bait or two that you start expanding on, you start picking up and throwing around, experimenting with?
Well, I think before the spinner bait for me is probably the chatterbait. Now the exception to that is cold water when it's dirty and those fish are already shallow and it gets dirty on them and it's cold, then that big thumper spinner bait. That's there, but just the natural progression of things. It's, you know, the jig works now and it'll keep working. Jerkbait's working now, it'll keep working. A crankbait is working now and it will keep working. But I think the chatterbait and kind of worked the same way that something I'm going to pay a little bit more attention to this spring. Something I used to do a lot is a lipless, rattle trap type bait. Working it the same way through the weeds as you would a chatterbait, popping it out of the weeds and, boom, there you go. That's a good bait, and the water doesn't have to be warm for that to work. I'm like everyone else, you forget about stuff. You go on to one thing and you forget about another thing that used to always work,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I've caught a lot of fish in that late winter, early spring on a rattle bait. And
you're dang right. You can catch one right now on it.
What you're talking about in that grass, especially once we start getting that little bit of a warm up and that grass starts getting some legs underneath it, and you just tick the very tops of it, and it can be a good way to get right in a hurry.
Yeah, it can be game on, and it's a big fish bait too.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's you can trigger a big fish that just kind of hanging there, doesn't really know if it wants to do anything, and then that rattle trap goes by, or whatever brand of rattle trap, and they eat it. They eat it because it's there.
You can cover a lot of water doing that too in a hurry.
You're darn right. Yeah, you're darn right. So
good way to find them.
I remember winter tournament. I don't know if it was probably 2 years ago, and I heard a story. I don't know if it's 100% true, but I assume it is. But a guy that caught the big bass, it was like a 6 something. He caught it on a rattle, a lipless, and the water was 42 degrees, something like that, 41, 42 degrees. Everybody was throwing jerk baits, and he caught a big one on a lipless.
Yeah.
Well, if live scopes taught me anything, it's not that they're lethargic and slow in the wintertime.
Right.
Their bite windows get so narrow sometimes in the winter. It's not that they can't go get a bait if they want to.
Right.
It's just the want to part of it is limited in the winter. I
agree.
Yeah. But when they want a bait, I don't care what the water temperature is, they'll go get it if they decide they want it. But all those baits we've been talking about, heck, you can go out right now with the crankbait, just a square bill or a DT6 or whatever. I'm sure you could muster up some fish with that right now. But as that water warms up, those bite windows get expanded, and it makes more sense to dedicate time to some other baits once the water warms up a little bit.
Absolutely.
Yeah, 100%. Hammy has a question. He says, what exciting things did you 3 pick up from the sports show this weekend? I picked up a vacuum cleaner. I picked up a dust cloth, and I picked up my kids.
Did you get the mop out too?
I swept. I picked up the broom and I swept. So that's what I got. Jonathan, you got some spinnerbaits, didn't you?
Yeah, I didn't luck out as well as Uncle Ron did, but I got a couple 1-ounce spinnerbaits. Is it hog collar, right?
Hog collar.
Yep.
Maybe hog collar. And Lunker Lure, they were selling. They had a really good deal on spinnerbaits. So it was advertised as $2 when I went up there. I think it was Sunday into show, and he didn't want to take any of it home, which I don't blame him. But the 1-ounce spinnerbaits were great, but I found some flat rubber, little bitty, like 1/4-ounce spinnerbaits that he had hanging up there.
Oh yeah,
and they're like,
oh yeah, I saw those.
Yeah, I picked up a couple of those. If nothing else, I got a spinnerbait for the little one to throw around, and I don't have to worry about getting it hung up and lost. But I don't know. I think that might be a little sneaky at some point when it gets tough.
Yeah, it's I'm going to give those guys a plug. I always try to support the local people. You know, whether it be Hog Collar or Lunker Lure or Hawgz Custom Baits, and but little history. Lunker Lure, everyone knows the Lunker Lure, the buzz bait. You know, originated in Southern Illinois. Well, they also own Hog Collar spinner baits, and they're made right here in DeCoin, Illinois, just north of us. And they it's kind of a cool deal. They employ it's called 5-Star Industries, and they employ I want to say the right word. I'll say the challenged or the less privileged, maybe, is who it's a nonprofit, I believe, and they employ those folks, and they build their baits for them. And so the business side, the business model is has a very humanitarian element to it. And I think they also build furniture. Don't quote me on that, but so anyway, it's a local business, once owned by Don Gentry. I don't think he still has something to do with it. Don Gentry's in Carterville, Illinois, and so I just wanted to give they always treat me right, and they really treat everybody right, actually. And so I just wanted to mention their name, and just a really good business, just a local business that sells nationally. And everyone's heard of the Rattleback jig and all that. They own all that. So just a shout out to some good folks over there.
Absolutely.
Yeah, those guys have been around for quite some time.
Forever. Yeah.
Yeah.
I did pick up a couple jerkbaits too.
Did you?
Yeah. Jig Shack was selling a couple.
Yeah.
Couple colors. I know Ron got him a nice little color, and I tried to find that one, but they didn't have that one anymore. I'm pretty sure that Hammy and Ron bought all of those out.
No, there was only one, and I raced in front of Hammy's dad, Mike.
Okay.
Rock, paper, scissors, and I got it from him. but then I felt bad, so I took Hammy and Mike out to dinner after the show. But I did get the jerkbait.
I found a couple unique colors and a couple of them that I think that are going to play. So I don't have them in here with me, but definitely looking forward to giving them a shot.
Hey, Ron,
yeah.
Do me a favor again. Click out of the link and click back in, because you got some static in your audio.
Okay.
All
right. Will do.
See you shortly.
All right.
Yes, Brian, that is a demon.
Yeah.
And that DT6, that is demon.
That's one of the all-time best colors in my opinion. I mean,
absolutely.
Got Jack Uxa on here. What's up, brother? Good to see you. Jack won a derby this weekend down there at LOZ. If you guys are looking for a guide on Lake of the Ozarks, he's a good one. Look him up. You will have a fun time. He's been on the stream before. We need to get him back on here. It's been months and months and months and months. He's got a lot of good timely information on Lake of the Ozarks. Scotty Edwards says Devil's Kitchen was 42 up front last weekend. And then a little Grasky, man.
I was going to say, have you heard about that?
Yeah, well,
I don't know what's going on. I guess they're working on the dam, right?
They are. They're doing some kind of survey or something. Ron can tell us more about it when he gets back on here. But yeah, they're
it's way down.
It's down. I think they're trying to get it down 5 feet, I do believe.
Well, that dock at the boat launch at the north end, up by the dam, was sitting on the gravel in a picture that I saw.
Right.
So that's usually floating.
Would you say they were going to pull it down 5 feet, Ron? A little grassy?
Yeah, I have some news on that, by the way.
Oh, okay.
It's yeah, and now this is from, I just got a text a while ago, I guess when I was at the basketball game, maybe. Scotty Edwards texted me. The press release the Refuge had put out was they were going to lower it to $495. Full pool is $500. So it's going to be, they were going to keep it 5 feet low minimum. And in the summer when it didn't rain, it's going to be less than that. But Scotty texted me, said he had got some information that they'd completed whatever work they were doing. And so I am inferring that they're going to let it fill back up. And if that's wrong, then I apologize. So, so I want to get out there before it fills back up, though. There's some stuff I want to go see out there.
Can you even launch right now?
I think you could if you're careful.
Okay.
Yeah, I think you could. But be careful. Don't anyone go out there. Oh, Ron said you can launch, and then you lose your trailer. But
don't go over to the Boy Scout launch and try to launch though.
No.
You can't launch when it's full at the Boy Scout. So
yeah. But there's some people would be amazed at what's in that lake that you just don't know that's there. But it sounds like maybe it'll be filled back up.
Speaking of Crab Orchard Wildlife Refuge, there's a tournament coming up, right?
The DK.
There's several. There's as far as the refuge, there's the Devil's Kitchen Open is coming up. That'll be April 16th, if my memory is correct.
Okay.
And then I think March 30th is the tournament on Grassy, Take Pride, which this water level thing we're talking about will be important for that. And I think that's March 30th. So yeah, and then there'll be the Bill Harkins 4-man, the 55th annual Bill Harkins 4-man tournament at Crab Orchard, and that is April 22nd and 23rd, or 23rd and 24th, whatever that Saturday Sunday is.
That should be a good one.
Yeah, and that's one of the oldest tournaments in the country, folks. There's not many places in the country that have a tournament that's been going on for 55 years. So that's pretty cool.
June's in here. What's up, June? Good to see you. Scotty says he was there Sunday. Can't get a boat in.
Okay.
Who's ready for some live tournament bass fishing? Man, I am.
That Toyota Series wasn't live, though, was it, this past weekend?
No.
I didn't think so. I don't think they had any coverage on that.
No. I'm ready. I was going to jump in the Table Rock PFL at the end of this month. I don't think I'm going to. I'm still up in the air about it. So it's going to be Anglers in Action coming up first part of March, and then I'm going to mix in some LBL BFLs.
You going back to the LBL this year?
Yeah, a few of them. I can't fish them all because the Anglers in Action are on Sundays, and they're two of the LBLs are the same weekend as the Anglers in Action. So for me to drive from Kentucky Lake on Saturday after work or after the tournament to Lake of the Ozarks,
that would be rough.
I think it's almost 7 hours. I think.
Well, you wouldn't be able to do that because LBLs are on Saturday,
right? So I'd have to fish the LBL and then drive all the way to.
They're on Sunday.
Yeah, they're on Sundays. I mean, it's doable if I had, if I was John Cox and I had a helicopter or something. But I'm just not going to do it. I don't want it. I don't want it that bad.
That's a death sentence right there.
Yeah, it just doesn't make sense. So I'm only going to be able to fish a couple of the LBL, and I might fish one or so of the Ozarks. But they raised the entry fee for the BFLs as a co-angler. It's 110. So I went from 100 to 110, and then on the boater side,
not a bad increase, but an increase.
The boater side 200 to 220, and they raised the membership from 75 to 95.
Oh wow!
And you have to pay for the regional. So
you got to pay for the regional.
Yeah, some price increases.
Okay. Yeah.
I don't know, man. I don't know. I just hope that they don't keep doing that every other year.
We've seen that in the past, though, right?
Yeah, and their membership dropped off a lot.
Yeah,
people started.
That's when we kind of quit.
Yeah. They got up to 165
for the co-angler.
It was up to 165. It went when we first got in. It was 100, just like it has.
It was 100, and then a $50 membership.
Right. And then when that was with FLW, and then when Major League Fishing, it was FLW had it up to 165, and then Major League Fishing bought it and dropped it back down to 100. but it was a $75 annual membership.
Yep.
So it's been 75 and 100 for 2 years, or 75, 200 for a boater. And so this is the first increase they've had since they took it over, which is understandable.
Hey, everything's going up in price.
Everything's going up.
I can't believe you got to pay for the regional though. That one's kind of a
I
you
know.
qualify for it and then you got to pay for it.
I know. It's.
But let's be honest, most regional team tournaments you got to pay for.
They're paying back 40 places, I think.
Okay.
So there's an increase in the payback, which is positive.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It is what it is. I just, like I said, I just hope that it doesn't go up to, 125 next year or the year after, and then 150. I just hope it doesn't start creeping up like a Spectrum. That's why I got rid of Charter Spectrum a long time ago, because every 6 months they want to throw like $10 extra for some.
Yeah, you don't notice it at first, then all of a sudden you start looking at it, it's like, holy cow.
Yeah, that drives me nuts.
Well, we were talking about that the other night with wireless plans. I was figuring out what you guys want. I know this doesn't relate at all, but
AT&T and Cricket. Yeah. I mean, I've been using Cricket for like 6 years, and the reason I went there is for the same reason you're thinking about it.
Yeah.
Because AT&T
4 lines for $100. I mean, why not?
They keep nickel and diming you to
right.
death. That drives me nuts.
Right.
I don't like it.
So,
of course, the price of stamps.
Less spinnerbait money.
What's that, Ron?
That's less spinnerbait money.
I know.
I was thinking less jackhammer money, but.
Well, yeah, I'm okay on jackhammers.
See, Ron got me out of the doghouse this weekend. So,
Kobe, thanks for showing up, man. I agree. It's hit and miss on the YouTube thing. Hit and miss. What's up, Dave? Good to see you, brother. Dave's in
Were you in the doghouse, JB?
No, I wasn't in the doghouse, but you just keep me out of the doghouse. When we show each other's fishing tackle rooms off, it usually alleviates some of that. Why do you have so much?
That's why you brought her over.
That's right. That's exactly why.
Let's see what we got. Doug says Wapapello is 2 feet below winter pool today.
Be careful out there.
Yeah, be careful. All right, let's dive into some late winter baits. Let's go chuck a bits in the turn. Right.
Take pride, grassy, April 1st. So this rain that we got coming in this week will definitely help fill it up if they've stopped the exodus of water at least.
Yeah, SEMO Outdoorsman, I know they run so many tournaments. The Major League Fishing, they've got them all the way down. They got the grassroots, the BFLs, Toyotas, all the way up, the invitationals, and it does cost more money. Just the price of fuel alone has went up, and I understand it. It's fine. I don't have a problem with it. I just hope they hold it there for 3 or 4 or 5 years and not try to raise it.
I looked into the Kincaid Lake Bass Club last year. I think you can fish that one solo, if I'm not mistaken.
I think
it is a solo trail.
They fish 2 a month too.
Yeah,
like every other week.
For me. It didn't work out with my kids' ball schedule. So with me coaching, it's hard for me to get to a weekend tournament from pretty much April to June, right when everybody's fishing. So
yeah.
And with the Kincaid, I think the biggest deal breaker for me was I couldn't go jackpot them. I had to fish them all. There was some weird, like you fish them all and you get your entry back, or if you don't fish them all, you don't get your membership back. I don't know how it worked out, but if I went in and tried to jackpot one, I basically would just break even if I won. So.
Yeah, Andy's saying they had red jackhammers at East Tennessee Fishing Show for $7.99. That Land Big Fish, they had a huge booth. They were selling stuff cheap. They were doing the 3 rods for
so you haven't been to the Classic.
No.
And so when you go to the Classic, that Land Big Fish is
doing the same thing there.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
3 rods for $99. No, it's not. It's Loomis's, anything like that, but it's definitely.
I think they had some Duckett some ducket rods for sale.
Usually, what I saw was ducket, lose, and Abu Garcia is usually what the 3 rods that they had there. So,
what's up, Eddie? Welcome to the show. Good to have you on here. Let's see. Let's start jumping into some. I'm trying to get caught up in these comments, but they keep popping up. This is good stuff. Solo Pro on Ozarks Lakes is probably the best deal going. There are a few of us from Illinois that may go and fish them rather than the BFLs. Yeah, the anglers in action too. If you're into the team tournaments, Martin, that's a really good circuit over there. It's professionally ran. In fact, Al, the guy that does he's the MC for the National Professional Fishing League, is also the MC for Anglers in Action. It's super well run, good paybacks, good camaraderie. You got Bass and Bob there in the morning handing out donuts and coffee. It meant all the hammers are there. All the local sticks are in that Anglers in Action. So that's what I'm going to be fishing with Mike. We're going to fish 3 of those. They got several different divisions. They got Lake of the Ozarks. They got Table Rock. I think they have a grand division. Then you can fish kind of an open division. You can pick and choose. And then they have a championship at the end of the year. I don't know how many they take for that. I'm assuming like top 20% maybe, but I'm not 100% sure on that. And I don't know where that's going to be at. But if we do qualify for that, I'm definitely interested in going and fishing that.
Heck yeah.
So, but I do still want to jump in some of the BFLs just because, Kentucky Lake's just a couple hours away. It'd be nice to just go down there and jackpot.
Phil's justification for Live Scope, that's the best one that I've seen yet so far.
A lady asked me one time why I own a boat if I'm going to fish so close to the bank. No answer for that. So I bought forward facing sonar to justify the boat. Hey, it makes total sense.
One
Phil.
way to look at it.
That's right. I like it.
That is so funny. I've thought about that so many times. When we're kids, you're
trying to cast as
fishing.
far as you can away from the bank.
Right. As soon as we get a boat, we want to fish as close as we can to the bank. It's just hilarious. But you can get that parallel bank cast when you're on the bank that you can't get from a boat.
Oh, I know.
Like land 2 foot off and keep it 2 foot all the way down the bank.
Yeah. Roll a buzz bait about that far off the edge.
Yeah, it's stiff competition. It's all the local hammers are in that. If you win one of those, or even getting a check in that, it means you've done something, in my opinion.
Speaking of Marfell, though, I ran into the guys at Bluff City this weekend.
Oh, did you?
Yeah,
Bluff
they
City
were over
Outdoors?
there.
Yeah,
we were talking about Virtus rods, and they were trying to get that line in there.
Yeah,
so that was pretty exciting stuff.
But yeah, that's going to be good for them. Virtus rods. If you guys haven't checked out Virtus Jewel rods, and you're looking for kind of a higher end rod, they're pretty phenomenal rods. May have something coming down the pipe here for too long. I don't know. Can't say too much about it, but we'll see what happens. Scotty says, JB and Gabe, you ought to come down to fish the DK Derby. I might. I don't know.
When is that one? When did you say that one was?
April 16th.
April 16th.
Yep, I think so.
Let me check my calendar. I'm a busy man here.
It's a 1-dayer.
It's a 1-dayer. Okay.
Yeah. And normally it's a 2-dayer, but in an effort to keep the tournament going, they've got a 1-dayer going this year, and then hopefully next year it's a kind of back to the full deal. There's a whole story behind that.
It used to be a 2-day tournament, right?
Yeah, it has been for 50 plus years.
Okay.
Yeah. There's Dustin right there. Hook and Needle TV, man. Welcome aboard, brother. I made an announcement earlier that we will be doing a giveaway. We're going to be giving away a hoodie from Hook and Needle.
We haven't. For the new people, though, we never told them how the giveaway works.
Yeah, so the new folks on here, and you're right.
We haven't done a giveaway in a while.
Good call. We haven't done it. Well, we did one.
You did one last week when I wasn't here.
That's right. So. We did one last week. But the way we do the giveaway is sometime during the stream, we're going to make a reference to a Sasquatch. Yeah, Sasquatch. And we picked a number. So when you hear that word, Sasquatch, guess a number between 1 and 200, and whoever guesses that number is going to win a fresh hoodie from Hook and Needle TV. Check out Hook and Needle on Facebook. He's got several cool hoodies and t-shirts and stuff on there that he's selling. He's just trying to get this company up and running. Good dude, does excellent tat work. He's a fish head like all of us. He fishes in St. Louis area. I think he's with a bass club in St. Louis area, but he's trying to get this company up and off the ground, kind of a little side hustle thing that he's got.
Those shirts, his logos, is all legit.
Yeah, it's good stuff. I mean, it looks really cool. This is the hat. This hat fits really nice. I like it. I've been wearing it around, kind of breaking it in. It takes a while to break in a hat, but it's fitting cool. I like the logo. It looks pretty cool. So if you're in the market for a tattoo or you're in the market for some fresh apparel, check them out. But we will be giving that hoodie away here shortly. Jay says Anglers in Action is top 30% of each division. Championship will be announced about halfway through the season. Okay.
I did just get a text. We're talking about Anglers in Action, but Kincaid Bass Club is full. I just got a text from Jeff Boone. So
it's full.
Yep.
Okay.
Which that shows the strength of that club. So
yeah, that's actually a good thing, I guess. Yeah.
There's not many bass clubs that are full right now.
No. No. Especially with
That's
all
a
the
valid
competition for all the circuits.
Right.
Valid point, Andy. You can but you can get unhooked from the boat. You usually have to break off from the bank. Very true. Very true.
Yeah, that's a justification, Andy. I saved a lot of money by buying a boat on fishing lures.
I didn't.
What's up, Perry? Good to see you on here. All right, we're caught up on questions, so you can keep the questions coming to any input is greatly appreciated. But I wanted to start with something, and you mentioned it earlier. We typically start getting some rain. We've been pretty fortunate this winter. I mean, I thought we were going to get a lot more rain. Their forecast several times had called for, some monsoons, but it just didn't happen. So we dodged that bullet because when you get rain in the winter and once that water gets dirty and it's cold, it just doesn't settle. It doesn't clear up. The water's more dense. Those particles just kind of suspend. And if it gets dirty, like in December, it's probably going to be dirty until March. It's just the way it is. So we've dodged that bullet, which has kept the jerkbait in play, which has been pretty nice.
Well, I tell you what, though, we got the rain because our lakes filled back up.
That's true.
They
it's
just
the way it happened.
They just didn't turn muddy.
Yeah, it's weird.
I don't know if it was because of I don't know the phenomenon on it, but I don't know if it was because we haven't had rain in months and months and months and months, and we were in a major drought. And when it did rain, it just ran into the lake, and it didn't have any sediment to wash out. I don't know what that deal was on that, but I noticed because I was over at Cedar a couple of days after it rained, and I expected it to fully be blown out mud. And get there and it's full, and the first little spot that you pass in coming on Pomona Road, and it was a little dirty. Got out to the main lake, and I mean it looked like nothing had changed, just water came up. So
yeah, and also that frozen precipitation, like we've had several inches of snow a couple different times. That doesn't all flood at one time.
Right.
It's a slow leach into the water system.
Right.
So that's probably got something to do with it as well.
Yeah.
But it's coming. It almost always gets muddy, and the water is still going to be cold. And, Ron mentioned this earlier, but one of my favorite things to throw when that water is basically, as long as it's 42 to 43 on up, is a really big spinner bait like this. And June Shoji was on here a while ago. This is one of his spinner baits. It's called the Treasure Trap, I do believe. And he does have a store up, right?
His United States web store is open. It was open 2 or 3 weeks ago when I looked.
Okay.
He'd made a good Facebook post. And then if you guys follow Carolina Fishing Tackle on Facebook, I believe is what it's called. They've been posting a lot of June stuff lately. So
yeah, he's just nonstop, man. If you guys haven't followed June Shoji on Facebook, check it out. He's from Japan, and he's a lure maker, and he's constantly tinkering with stuff. But it doesn't have to be this spinner bait, obviously. But basically, a 1/2 ounce to 3/4 ounce with a size 6 Colorado blade. White and chartreuse, or white has been the color that I lean on heavily. And I like to put a big swim bait on the back. This is a Berkeley grass pig. You can see that tail, it doesn't fall over. This is a stiff swim bait. You don't want something like a Kitech that's got a bunch of action, in my opinion. You want something that's kind of stiff. This is This is for lift. This just allows you to slow this thing down. You're slow rolling this thing around shallow cover, shallow grass, shallow wood, laydowns, rocks, things like that. Places that the fish will pull up on when the water gets muddy. You get some sunny days. They're going to warm up by pulling up their shallow. But this thing really thumps, and this swim bait allows it to kind of glide. You can really slow it down. And it also gives it a bigger profile from the side. You got a really big profile. It just looks like a big gizzard shad. So gold, I like the gold or brass blade. And this is it's a pretty stiff arm, but you've got such a big motor right there that it's still thumping and vibrating. But this is something that when the jerkbait, if it's too dirty, which you can still get a jerkbait bite even in a foot of visibility, but it's just not quite as productive. There's times I think when this becomes a little bit more productive than the jerkbait. So when we get those water conditions where it's still pretty cold, if you're not getting a jerkbait bite, pick up a big spinnerbait like this and just slow roll it around. And you may not catch 10 or 15 fish in a day, but you're typically going to catch a little bit better than average fish.
It's only for you, bud. It's the treasure hunt.
Oh, it's a good one, man. I've caught a lot of fish on it already. I'm going to be throwing it here shortly. We're supposed to be getting some rain tomorrow night, I think, maybe.
Yes.
We
Kevin
need
says,
about an
what's
inch
the
and a
weight
half.
on that? It's 1 ounce.
Next 3 days.
This one here's a 3/4 ounce.
Okay.
Yeah. Size 6 Colorado blade. And this is a Berkeley grass pig. And it's just I don't know. It's kind of like the white trash color, that eggshell. Just off-white. But any big, you just want a stiff spinnerbait. Stiff swim bait. That's the key.
My favorite's that Covert is it Booyah, right?
Mm-hmm.
They make a good
Jason Christie.
Yeah, they make a good 1 ounce, 3/4 ounce spinnerbait. Tracks really, really true. It's got good blades on it, good thumping blades on it. So,
did you put a trailer?
One thing I'd like to add to that spinnerbait thing, when that water does get dirty, we're entering that time of the spring where dirty water, but it's going to be changing dirty water, and then the water temperature within that dirty water. Bass.
Shut up.
Pay attention as this water is assuming we get some dirty water. When you start working your way into the creeks, irregardless of where you're at. This is a really important time of year to start to pay attention to water color change. Not the water color itself, but the change of the water color. And there'll be areas of the creek where that water color transitions. And those invariably are areas where there's a really good opportunity to catch some fish. There's fish in all different parts of the water color. But that water color change area, that transition area, is very often the key. And a lot of times, early spring, the patterns that you put together will be based on where in that water color change those fish are setting up. And when you get that dialed in, there's times when you can run that creek to creek to creek to creek, and you'll see it. It's a totally visual thing, and it's often with a associated. It doesn't matter whether the water's 42 degrees or 48 degrees, but what it matters is, has it been 45 and it's steady and now it's 46, or has it been 47, 48? Now the front went through and now it's 43. And what you're looking for is that sweet spot where there hasn't been a drastic change to the fish. In all the other areas where there's been a drastic change, that's where the bite gets tough. In that window where it's been more stable, that's usually the zone where you can catch some fish. And that's a little game that gets played all spring long. And if the water stays clear, it doesn't play. But assuming we start to get some dirty water, and you'll get a feel for it. You'll look at the water and you'll say, "Oh my God, I need to throw this bait," whatever that is. and you'll know you're going to catch fish. It's just a feel and a little bit of time on the water. But pay attention to that watercolor change, not just what the watercolor is, but how it transitions from the front of the creek to the back of the creek. And there's a lot of times you can put together a pretty solid pattern within that.
So you're almost using your watercolor change throughout the creek as a break, or
it's an edge.
From gravel to mud or clay, it's a
1,000%. Stage. Yep, 1,000%.
That's something that I don't pay attention enough to. I know that. Right. I mean, we always talk about fishing a mud line, but that's not a mud line. That's a
no. Yeah.
Here's a story about
transition. Yeah.
I fished with Ron a couple years ago, and I didn't pay attention to that stuff all that much either. But I know Ron was really mentioned that several times throughout the day. We'd pull in a pocket and he'd mention the watercolor, just a slight stain or a slight bit of clarity here and there. And after that day, I really started paying attention to that. And you can kind of put 2 and 2 together. You'll start noticing maybe you're getting some bites in this color water and you get out of it and the bite's not as active. Just a subtle change too. It's not huge. Now, another thing I wanted to mention, talking about rain, and that's runoff. When you do get a good runoff, and that's typically, from what I found, the water needs to be a little bit warmer. I think right now, if you get some runoff, it's negative. You're probably going to stay away from that. But once the water gets into, when it gets in like around 50, 52, 53, 54, and you get some of that warmer rain coming in.
I was just going to say that it depends on the rain temperature.
Right.
Right. They really, typically we're not getting, we might get some warm rain. Who knows? But yeah, you're right. It depends on the water that's coming in. Is it warm? Is it warming up the area? But that will pull bait into those little cuts. I've seen it happen. It can be some phenomenal days. But I've tried it a couple different times when it was colder, and it doesn't seem like it works as well as it does in, say, the middle of March or something, when things are kind of like what you talked about, when things are trending warmer and you get that rain coming in, that runoff is huge. All the baits that we're going to talk about, that spinnerbait can come into play. Pretty much everything can come into play, and you can run that pattern around a lake.
Sure.
A lot of these lakes that we fish, they have steep hillsides. They have a lot of guts and a lot of ravines, and you get some pretty heavy duty runoff. You can just target that stuff. You can really target that stuff.
Yeah. Another thing where you'll see too is, after you get your rain and the water muddies up and it's been muddy for a while, you ever notice that when it starts to clear up, those first couple feet from the bank out will clear up first?
Mm-hmm.
Kind of that inside grass edge or that, that area on the bank. A lot of times that transition will be between you and the bank. Somewhere it'll be dirtier out towards the boat and it'll be clear up towards the bank. Or sometimes, I'm sure you've seen it where there's mud coming into the lake. You can almost take your hand and swipe it, and the mud clears and it's clear underneath it. So the mud's on top and then it's clear below. So that water color change can happen a lot of different ways, but however it happens, it gets to be a big factor this time of year. There'll be a sweet spot in it somewhere.
Yeah, Kevin, I did a video, I think it was last year, with spring runoff. It was the exact day that I was just talking about, that we're just talking about the same kind of conditions. And if you're fortunate enough to be off work or, be able to get on the water, it's usually just a one-day thing, maybe 2 days. It's a timing thing. I know some of the places like Doug Auto Trieve on here, he's told me that those strip pits, Pyramid State Park, if you get a good rain, they have the concrete ditches and concrete drainage ditches. If they get a good rain and that stuff's draining, it can be just a stupid day. I mean, you can catch 75, 100 fish. It's
all in one spot.
You just go around and fish those little concrete drains. There's only 2 or 3 in each lake, but
Right.
seems like all the fish in that area just pull to that stuff.
Yep.
Well, a lot of those lakes are featureless too, right?
They
It's
are.
just drops and cuts, and it's a straight bank with 40 feet from here to the wall away from us. So
Jay says, this past fall, I was surrounded by some of the best spinnerbait fishermen in the Midwest. I was shocked. They swear by no trailer.
You throw a trailer. I don't throw a trailer. So.
I throw a trailer when I'm doing this big spinnerbait thing. Normally, I don't. Sometimes I will throw that split tail, but I normally don't throw a trailer.
Yeah,
I
Darius
just don't.
was talking about that. The old Zoom split tail.
Yeah, it's just it doesn't really take away from the spinnerbait. It's just something kind of trailing there. I know guys that put like a 10-inch worm on the back of a spinnerbait. I know Craig Hipsher down there at Kentucky Lake was talking about doing that. But no, normally I don't. It's just when I'm really trying to get that really big profile on this bait right here.
Mm-hmm.
That's the only time I throw, the big swim bait on that spinnerbait.
And on my big spinnerbaits, I don't.
Okay.
So I stick away from I don't. No other reason than I just don't.
Right. So it's probably a confidence thing. I feel like I can slow it down just a little bit with that piece of plastic on there.
Yep.
But
it's going to ride higher too.
It's going to ride higher.
So,
yeah. It's just something.
Everyone's going to roll their eyes at the ceiling when I say this, but I can't help it. A stupid number 11 pork chunk on the back of a spinnerbait in the spring is a pretty effective trailer when you're trying to keep that bait up in water column and not have something that's too overbearing on the bait. That will catch a fish.
That makes sense. That pork's, buoyant too. Plus you got all that surface area, kind of making it glide.
Yeah, and you got to rig it anti-block it.
Right.
The flat side down.
Yeah. Yep.
Oh Lord.
Hey, everybody's got a different way of doing everything.
That's right. Couldn't help it. Sorry.
Yeah. If everybody did it the same way, the fish wouldn't bite.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's old school. That's right.
God, well, in the same sentence, we got pork and block it in here tonight. So
yes.
Scotty says, "Shut up, man. Don't talk about that."
Sorry, Scotty. And if you want to catch a fish at night, I'll just put this out there. For God's sakes, when the water's over 50 degrees, if the water's clear, go throw a black spinnerbait at night with the number 11 pork chunk, and you will catch all you want. Just go down the bank. Well, no one does it, so I say it every year. No one goes out and does it. So,
I saw at Academy that Uncle Josh's pork was on sale.
Oh, they have it in there?
Really?
It's on sale too.
Wow, it's expensive.
$7 or $8 a cube.
Really?
Yeah.
That's unfortunately
I'm gonna go in there and pick some up. Did they have a couple different colors?
I didn't look. I'm not a pork guy. So
okay.
I didn't look.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I don't do enough night fishing, but with my crazy ball schedule this year, I might be making more trips over the week nights to fish.
When I was coaching, that was the only way I could stay on the water.
Just leave early enough in the evening.
I swear to God, I had 2 years where I worked. I worked full time. I coached travel ball, and I got 100 days on the water in a year. Yeah, I never slept, but it was only because of night fishing.
Right.
There you go. Darius says he uses a mini scrub rigged up vertically.
That works.
He's down
I use that on my
Lake.
I use that on my swim jigs.
Yeah.
Yep.
So let's dive into the next bait. I just threw some baits out here, and you mentioned it earlier. Well, you guys both mentioned it, but it's a bladed jig. To me, that comes into play right after that early spinnerbait bite.
I think it can be the same day.
It can be the same day.
Yeah, you're not. Yeah. I don't think you're limited to it's preference, but I personally think that people have gotten away from spinnerbait since the chatterbaits launched, and there's not many spinnerbaits that get thrown anymore. There's a heck of a lot more chatterbaits or bladed jigs that get thrown.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
I agree with that. They both work, but I agree with that. Yeah. I wanted to ask, I'm glad we're talking about the chatterbait a little bit. I haven't really thrown it yet. Has anyone thrown, either you two or anyone listening, the Berkeley, I think they call it the slobber knocker?
I haven't thrown it. I have not thrown it.
I talked to a couple of guys at the sports show that said they really like it. They say it starts up easy. I don't know. I haven't thrown it yet. I've got a few, but I haven't really thrown it.
Yeah, I haven't. I bought Dad a couple of them for his birthday, but I have not picked it up and thrown it. So
yeah, that might be something to consider, just if no one's really throwing it yet, just because it's a little different.
Right.
Yeah,
it's going to have a different sound. It's going to have a different vibration. So, I mean, they have all seen plenty of jackhammers. I promise you that. So.
Oh yeah, but that's still a good bait, man. It's well made.
That one right here. This is from Titty's Jig Works bladed jig that I got. Some of these.
Looks good.
It's a good one, man. It's got that switchblade. It's that queen tackle switchblade, I believe, that's on there. It's got a really good action to it. Something different. We're talking about different bladed jigs.
I like the eyes.
Got that big old eyeball, so the fish know that it's looking at them. That. It's a good skirt color too. It's got a really good gizzard shad colored skirt. But
and it's hand tied.
It's hand tied. Yeah, it's a really good bait. It's a good price. Runs good. The thing I like about the jackhammer, you know, it's $16, $17 bait, but it starts up so quick.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and if you're saying that slobber knocker starts up quick, I need to pick up a couple of those.
Yeah, that's just what I haven't thrown it, so I'm just repeating what I heard. But yeah, it caught my attention.
Yeah, Phil, I've seen a bladed jig do really well at night a couple different times. Jerry, one night we were fishing at Cedar. Jerry was throwing a bladed jig out of the back of my boat, and he was whacking them. He was catching them really good. I was throwing a spinnerbait too. They wouldn't hit a spinnerbait. He started. It was right when I think I got live scope, and we were seeing a lot of fish kind of suspended up off the bottom, and you know, we're talking. My boat was in 20 foot, so we weren't fishing the bank really, and he was catching them like mid depth on a bladed jig, and I've done that a couple different times. I had some bites after dark, so it definitely works. I mean, it's got such a thump. I mean, they can definitely pick it up on the lateral line. Let's see.
Any rigging trips or tricks that you guys use on a chatterbait that might be a little different?
I just rig, you know, for me personally, it's a lot of times it's a small swim bait. Just a Hawgz. This is like a 3.3. The Reaction Innovation Skinny Dipper is another one that I throw a lot, which is a 3-inch paddle tail. That spunk shad, the Hog Farmer spunk shad, is one that I've been playing around with a little bit. I like that quite a bit. It's, you know, basically it's got this swim bait body, but it doesn't have a paddle tail. It just kind of keeps on tapering out. But it's got just a little wiggle to it. It makes it dart. It's got good hunting action. And I think that's really about all I use. Sometimes I'll put a menace on there, but you know, you can put all kinds of stuff. What about you? What's your go-to trailer?
Well, same thing. Trailer wise, one thing I've noticed, I just kind of learned this by accident when I first started. I was late to the chatterbait game. I'm a spinnerbait guy. My dad was a spinnerbait guy. I was a spinnerbait guy. So I was scoffing at the chatterbait, and then I finally woke up and said, I need to throw a chatterbait. But sometimes you just can't beat the way that thing clears the weeds, and we'll get a bite. But so I'm fishing, and I'm catching them good on this chatterbait, right? Just normal old white jackhammer. And you know, after you catch some fish, that skirt gets thinned out. You notice that? You know, the fish will pull some of the skirt out, or you're changing your trailer, and invariably that skirt gets thinned out quite a bit. And boy, I was catching them. Well, I finally rolled the hook over on the bait, so I was like, crap, I better put on a new one. So I put on a new one with a big full skirt, and I was shocked at how much shallower it ran, right? So all of fishing, I don't care what lure you're throwing, it's about depth control of whatever it is you're throwing. And I wasn't catching them as good as I had been with that old crappy skirt on there. So I took some scissors and I thinned that skirt out, and I went right back to catching them. And it's amazing the difference that the bulk of the skirt or lack thereof will affect how that bait runs depth wise. And that's especially when they first, early in the spring, when they're still a little bit off the bank, maybe a little bit more, or off the weeds, or whatever it is you're fishing. That can be, if you've got an old spinnerbait you're not afraid to screw with, or chatterbait rather, thin that skirt out a little bit and experiment with that. And that's
a good tip.
You'll get 2 extra feet in retrieve depth out of that on some of that.
I'm sure it probably gives it a little better, action too. Maybe that skirt's got more.
It's less.
It might hunt a little bit more.
Yeah, and it's going to flare and fluff out a little more, I would imagine.
I got one just like you're talking about, Ron, and it's my go-to chatterbait. If I'm having a tough day, it's kind of like that old crankbait that sits in your box. You don't ever pull it out until you need it. I have that chatterbait. I've replaced everything on it a couple times, and the hook's been resharpened. But it's that one.
A thin skirt.
Yep,
a thin skirt will can be a difference maker. And you can do the opposite on a spinnerbait. Have you ever double skirted a spinnerbait to get more lift instead of a trailer? So you keep that compact profile. Yeah, you can. A lot of times what I'll do is, most spinnerbaits now come with a silicone skirt. But take that silicone skirt and take a living rubber skirt and put it up underneath it. So you got both, and use that for your lift without creating a bigger profile. And that can be a sneaky way to solve a problem on the water too. So yeah, that skirt makes a big difference. It can, in how that bait comes back to you. I learned that by accident. As far as the chatterbait goes, I was like, oh crap, I was shocked at how different that was.
Yeah, they don't make my trailer anymore that I like on the chatterbait.
Was that by a NetBait?
Yeah.
BK?
The BK shad.
Yeah.
That was dynamite.
That was a good one. I can't believe they quit making that.
Yeah. It was a hollow body.
We were going to ask JT Kinney about that too.
Yeah, we were. We forgot about that. It was just a hollow body, cheap swim bait, but it had just the right amount of action to it.
Yeah. It didn't have a square. It didn't have a square tail like the big hammer. It still had a rounded or an oval or whatever.
Yep.
Okay. Still a boot. Wyatt's got a question. I guess we can all touch on this. Hey Monty, what's your top 5 spring baits for Lake of Egypt? I know Ron's got to chime in on this.
You go first.
Mine's
probably the same.
Yeah. Mine. Yeah. I was gonna go with the rock crawler. That's one that I like to throw. It's a little bit different. Different for me. I don't throw a lot of crankbaits, but I've had decent success with a rock crawler in the spring. I know it's super popular in the Ozarks, but Egypt's got a lot of grass, and just outside that grass line, this is something that's going to get some bites. Gosh, the big spinnerbait like we showed is another one. I like a jig a lot. I'm always going to have a jig, something to flip, but just a Cumberland Pro, probably the 1/2 ounce pig jig. And I'll probably have there's so many different trailers. If I just had to have one trailer, just a speed crawl, super finessey. I still kind of like that tight, compact jig, even though you can go to a bigger jig in the spring for sure and get some bites. I'll throw a chatterbait, and I'll throw a swim jig, and then I'm going to have something on top. I mean, probably a frog. I mean, something I can walk, something I could skip, I could throw around the grass, and I have to not worry about it getting hung up. I caught some pretty good fish when the water's like 54 on a frog before people start really throwing it.
On this side of the year, not the back side of the year.
Right.
Spring.
Yeah, in the spring. So that's probably it. What about you, Ron?
I'll try to make it a little bit more specific for what I do. Just number one, everyone, Egypt is a white lake. They have liked the color white as far as spinner baits, chatterbaits goes since I was a kid. And I mean, it changes obviously, but you can't go wrong with a white spinnerbait or a white chatterbait. I do like white and chartreuse as far as spinnerbait, but white is good on Egypt. But when the water's below 50 and below, black jig with a black pork chunk, hard to beat. And as far as the jig goes, when the water gets above 50 degrees, purple jig with a black chunk. And that's it until whenever, until I'm throwing a power worm and a brush pile in the summertime. I don't get any more complicated than that. Chatterbait, just a white chatterbait with a white trailer. Now, if the water stays clear in the spring, there's I forget the name of it on the jackhammer, but there's a little bit more translucent colored white one that jackhammer makes if that water is clear, and sometimes that's important, especially if they start getting pressured. So there's your jig, spinnerbait, chatterbait. I mean, no real shocker there. And then.
Ooh, that was the secret juice.
That was the
right
juice,
there.
and the Egypt
froze
Wi-Fi
up.
signal just shut it down.
And
It's gonna be really good when it comes out. It's coming, guys. We're just building up the drama.
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh.
Some noise.
Maybe
Some
you're only gonna
reverb.
get 2 from Uncle Ron. But those 2 baits will put some fish in the boat. He's always on that black jig, man. And I've seen it work.
Is it a straight black jig?
It's a black jig with a black pork chunk.
Really? Black on black.
Black on
Black,
black.
black and blue.
And I've been in the boat, and he's been throwing that, and I've been throwing green pumpkin.
And just
And
wear you
he's
out.
catching 4 to 1 on that black jig. And he's got a certain way he fishes it too. You're froze up, Ron. I don't know if you can hear us, but click out and come back in. But he's got a, that's something when you watch people fish a jig. I've paid attention to that in the BFLs a lot. When I fish with Roger Fitzpatrick, everybody's got a little bit different way. And a lot of those guys, it's almost like they're pumping in on somewhat of a slack line. Same way I fish a shaky head.
Mm-hmm.
And they're just making that thing just kind of sit there and bounce up and down. And a lot of times I'll pull it a little bit, let it sit, pull it a little bit. But I've seen those guys that do really good, just kind of pop it. So that's something I picked up after I fished with Roger Fitzpatrick. I've been doing that a little bit more.
I remember when I was a kid, you talk about that pumping. That's how I learned to fish a jig, was just almost just like shaking your rod tip constantly. Not violently, but it was always moving. And I've really gotten away from that. I'm like you, I pull a lot more than I just kind of.
Sorry about that.
I jig it.
It's okay.
You're good. You're good.
It was perfect. You were about to give away the juiciest secret on Lake of the Egypt in spring, and you froze up.
I used to throw a Bagley's. I used to be, as far as crankbaits go, of course, we didn't have a lot to choose from, but now we have some. And the DB6, the DB8, the Rapala, that's a great production balsa. But that Bagley's, DB2 or the DB1, you reel it down into the timber or the edge of the weeds and stop it, and it would float up, and you could really control the bait without getting hung up. You can throw it in the cover. I mean, throwing it like you throw a spinnerbait or a chatterbait, throw that crankbait into the cover, get it down, let it come up, and just kind of feather it through whatever it is you're fishing. And that's good, not just on Egypt, but that's something I'm going to do again a little bit. But that's a little bit of a forgotten deal. And then the other one that might be a little different. It's not really different, just one of those, again, a little bit forgotten about, is a fluke. A fluke is a fantastic spring bait. When they won't come up and hit a moving bait, you can throw that fluke over a windy weed bed or something in the spring, and my gosh, sometimes or a Cinco, same thing. good old Senko, wacky rigged or just regular. That's pretty good too. So.
And it catches some big ones too. You're not just out there catching dinks on that wacky.
No,
rig.
yeah, you're right. Yeah.
Jimmy wants to know what sunglasses are you wearing?
I've been a Costa guy for a while. They work pretty well for me. And I had my ex-girlfriend. I hate saying ex because she's still a good girl. We're just not boyfriend girlfriend anymore.
Former girlfriend.
Yeah, anyway, long story short, she had a business relationship with Costa through her work. And she would go off to these meetings and come home, and I'd have like 10 or 15 pairs of Costas to choose from.
Sweet.
So, yeah. But I do like them. I
know you're Bahio, right?
Yeah, I've got some Costas. I haven't worn them in a while, but I wore Costas for a long time, and then I've been wearing Bahio the last year, and I really like those. They're comparable. Me personally, the Bahio, it's Bahio, I think. Yeah,
Bahio.
Yeah, but the Bahio is more comfortable for my head, and it depends on everybody's head's a little bit different. That's probably the hardest thing about picking out sunglasses. You got to have a good lens, which Costa and Bahio and actually have a really good lens.
And that's personal preference for everybody. Like what you like and what I like and what Ron likes are three different lenses, but they all work for us individually.
You got to have a lens that's got good clarity so you don't get a headache. Something that'll happen if you get some cheaper sunglasses is if you wear them for 8 hours, you'll start messing with your eyes.
It's the eye fatigue.
It's the eye fatigue
because you're just blocking out light. You're not blocking out the UV, the glare off of the water. I mean, I've had all of the sunglasses, you name it. I've had them all. Mm-hmm. And when I switched to Costas, it was almost like night and day.
Yeah.
On the water, you went fishing on Saturday with a pair of X brand sunglasses, came home after, 10, 11 hours on the water. You had a headache, your eyes hurt, woke up the next morning, put on a pair of Costas Bio.
They're worth pair. Yeah, there's a couple good brands out there. I think the most important thing is just they're worth investing a few bucks in to have a good pair of sunglasses.
Yes, right.
And it's good eye. And the other thing is that's great for eye protection. That you set the hook and that weight comes flying back at you. You'd rather break your sunglasses than your noggin. You know 100%. What I mean? And so wear them. They're a good safety feature. Little tip in the spring. Of course, in springtime we start thinking about looking at them, right? And a green mirrored sunglass is a very good all-around shade. The green mirror, open water, sunny. The blue mirror is good. And then when you're wanting to, they tend to let in. I don't want to get too technical. Those general ones will let in somewhere around like 13% sunlight or something like that. And then for actually looking at them, if you actually get a chance to, you're looking in the water and you want to see fish or you want to see something shallow, Costa makes one called Copper Sunrise. And but it lets in like 27% light, so you gotta be careful. You don't want to wear them just for daily use or driving or something like that. But
I got silver mirrors. My silver mirrors are a copper base.
Yeah.
And that's for seeing in the water. But if you're just looking for one general color, that the green mirror is a pretty good one.
Green. Get technical here, Ron. Blue lets in the least amount. Green is the next step down, if you down or up, whichever way you're looking at. But green lets in a little bit more, silver a little bit more, and then that copper sunrise lets in quite a bit.
Yeah.
So
they wear the blue a lot on the ocean, I guess.
Yes, they do.
I have some blue mirror guns too. The blue ones are good for driving too.
Yep.
You know, if it's sunny,
So those are a gray base. The blue mirror is a gray base lens, so it really takes out that light transmission. So,
and then on the Bahio side, their violet lens is something that you would wear in a low light condition. I wear that a lot on a cloudy day, and it's like a happy sunglasses. It makes your cloudy day like really bright and sunny.
Right.
But yeah, so the actual frame is another thing that is hard to pick out without actually going to a store and trying them on, because everybody's head is completely different. I mean, it's hard to, there's definitely not a one size frame fits all. That's the hardest thing to pick out, in my opinion, is to get a comfortable frame that sits good on your nose and sits good on your ears and stuff. So, you know, if you find a company that has a frame that you like, I suggest sticking with it.
I mean, I tell you what, I found mine with the Costa frames, and I got 3 pairs of the same frame.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I got the nippers, the Bahio nippers are what I've got 2 sets of those, and I love them. They fit my head perfect.
But they don't fit my head at all.
No, they'd be too narrow.
Yeah, they're way too narrow for my head. So
Phil said he broke out the Model A green weenie on Egypt the other day.
Ooh, did he catch him?
I don't know.
Oh,
He'll probably tell us if he did.
The comment above it
he's going to Florida.
Is rough.
Yeah, he said, "Hey, Gabe, punching for the next 3 weeks." Not trying to rub it in, but I
he
know you're partial to
punch.
He is, obviously. Well, tear him up, man.
I hope you do awesome down there. It's all the bourbon talking, he says.
What's up, Derwin? Good to see you on here. Do any of you guys throw braid to fluoro while fishing football jigs? I don't personally. The only time I throw braid to fluoro is on a spinning rod. I mean, all my spinning setups are braid to fluoro. It's typically 15-pound braid to 8 or 10-pound fluoro. But I haven't. I know, Ron, you throw a Carolina rig with the braid, don't you still?
Yeah, braid to mono.
Braid to mono. Okay, so braid to the
Carolina
swivel and then mono leader.
Right.
Yeah.
Correct.
What about you?
I'm
spinning rod?
Spinning rod. It's the only time that I tie any kind of knot. I don't.
Yeah,
and it's because I'm a slackliner though too. I can't have a knot when I'm throwing a football jig. I'd feel like I'm going to break it off. And not that I'm downplaying my knot that I tie, because I really like my knot, but that knot going through guides and I'm bombing a football jig as far as I possibly can on a hump or something. I don't want anything to slow it down. So
the guys like Seth Fighter and them flipping with a braid to fluoro and that FG knot, and that obviously works. You know, and then I'm sure it's effective with the right setup, you know, with a wobble head or a football head. And I haven't done it, but I would assume if you've got braid, there's always got to be give somewhere, you know, depending on what you're doing. So I would assume that would require a little bit, maybe softer rod, maybe.
That's what I was just going to say. Yeah.
Yeah, I would assume. I haven't done it, so I'm not going to, I don't know, but I'm pretty comfortable with fluoro.
Especially on, a football jig. I mean, yeah, you could be throwing it in some pretty rough stuff, but if you keep an eye on your knot and you keep your eye on your first 24 inches of line, more times than not, it's going to be use your air. You're going to have the same issues breaking off with that leader, if not more, because of a knot. I can't. You talk about that flipping setup with a 65-pound braid to what, a 25 or 30-pound fluorocarbon leader. There, I wouldn't trust my knot tying ability on that.
Yeah, and I don't know how to tie an FG knot. If I'm just being honest, I don't know how to tie that. So
I've tied one successful one, and I spent about 3 hours one night sitting on the couch watching video after video, trying to figure out how to put it in my mouth, wrap it around my head, 3 toes tied together, and I ended up just cussing more than I did tying. So
it obviously works. It's not.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, but it's But I haven't done it.
No, I'm not the less complicated I can make my fishing, the better off that I typically am. So
Yeah. Okay. So Hayden Newberry, I forgot his name. You remember Hayden? That he
Yeah, we
he
saw
made
him at
his
Mille Lacs.
Yeah, exactly. That was pretty cool. So
He
I
got a
fished
top
with
10 at
him.
Rayburn.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, that was sweet. He punches with a fluorocarbon leader,
Okay.
and I've seen him bring in some nice fish. But I don't know if he's an FG knot guy. I would assume that's something when if I was to punch with a fluorocarbon leader, I would definitely be tying the FG knot. I wouldn't trust any other knot because I've pulled out the Alberto knot. That's not a good knot for punching with the fluorocarbon leader. That's more of a
small line.
It is.
Can you tie an FG?
No, I'm like you. I tied it one time and it took like a long time to do it.
Yeah. Well,
my FG would turn into an FU.
Well said.
Who was it on BTL the other day that somebody was talking? They were talking about tying the FG knot, and they've gotten really fast at it. And this was a pro, and it was a minute and a half, 2 minutes.
It was like Taku or.
It was on Luke Duncan's show,
right?
And it was Taku, and he said he could tie it in like a minute and a half, and that was fast.
And that's fast for that knot, I guess.
That was fast.
It's like a 5-minute knot. I think most guys. I think Fighter can tie it in 2 minutes, maybe. I think I've heard him say that.
Can you imagine those guys though that when they're fishing up at Mille Lacs or Thousand Islands where they got 10 or 12 spinning setups and they're tying that knot over and over and over again.
That's why they can tie it.
I don't tie that on spinning. I've got that Alberto or whatever they call it.
It works great.
It's basically half of a double uni. What it is.
Yeah, I've never had any problems with that knot, but I have had problems with that knot when I was punching.
You've tried it?
Yeah. I've lost my stuff twice, like setting the hook on a big fish.
That's an expensive loss too.
It was. Yep. 1 ounce tungsten weight and a hook and the bait and all that. It was
the tungsten hurts
$7 or $8. Yeah, exactly. So what else we want to talk about? Crankbaits. We talked about a bladed jig. We talked about a chatterbait.
I throw a square bill a lot.
I
throw that 1.5 and that 2.5 size a lot this time of year, or coming into this time of year, that spring.
I'm glad you guys brought up the crankbait because that's, like I said, that's something I want to reinvest in. And I went ahead and I like buying tackle anyway, but I invested in some of the PH Customs.
Yeah.
And a couple of the other custom brands that you can buy, balsa baits, wood baits.
Black Label makes one.
Yeah, I bought some Black Labels, and I know this time of year going forward, that flat-sided crankbait, it's time to throw that.
Absolutely.
What's your guys' experience with that this time of year?
I've had some good days on. Well, I brought a couple out. We talked a little bit about the rock crawler, but that's a totally different category. But this Fritz side, the Berkeley Fritz side, that's a really good one. It's hard to beat that one.
You got the weight in the bottom?
Yeah. It casts a little bit better than the balsa. It's still got similar action, a little cheaper, a little more durable. I mean, the balsa can get banged up around the rocks, but it's still got definitely got that balsa kind of, action. And then the Spro, the Little John, it's got that tungsten ball in it. It's a really good one. I saw the power of this thing on Kentucky Lake years and years ago, but it's a same concept.
That's a Kentucky Lake killer color right there too.
That is.
Is that Spring Crawl? Spring
Crawl. Yep.
Yeah.
You gotta have this color in your arsenal. I don't know if you can.
Yeah, that is a Kentucky Lake special right there.
Did
they used to call that like the carp color or something like that, like on the shad wrap?
No, they actually have a carp color.
They have a carp color?
Mm-hmm. They have a carp color in the. I know in Strike King they have that in their red eye shad line.
Mm-hmm. They do.
I have a handful of those, and I've caught fish on them. So.
Jack said,
"Yeah, that flat-sided crankbait is flat-sided crankbait this time of year, it's for real. It's this time to throw it.
Shad Rap obviously works real well too. I mean,
Yeah.
Right.
not to downplay it, but it's a
Shad Rap's a spinning rod deal. I can throw it on my little jerkbait rod, but
I can
boy,
throw
it's
I can throw a
sketchy.
7.
No, a 9.
No, I can throw a 7 on a
Okay.
bait caster.
It's tough.
It's not easy.
Can you?
Yeah, I had a guy made a comment one day. He's like, "How in the hell are you throwing that?" And I was like, "Carefully."
Are you using a BFS reel? Like a
Nope.
bait finesse? No, just regular.
No, so here you go. Here's a tip for throwing light baits on bait casters. And I back spool with like 65-pound braid.
Okay.
So that adds more weight to your spool than
Good
than
idea.
fluorocarbon or mono will. This is my thought process. It adds a little bit more weight. Spool spins a little more freely.
Okay.
That's how I do things. So,
Well, if you can throw it, it's working.
yeah. Throw it on 10 or 12.
Yep.
But
Scott says, understand braid with a leader on spinning reel so it doesn't jump off the spool, and for line twist. But why on a bait caster?
so I would imagine he's talking about the braid to fluorocarbon there on a bait caster.
Yeah.
I've personally never thrown braid to fluorocarbon on a bait caster.
Yeah, I like the braid to mono for the Carolina rig. I like that sensitivity of the braid with a 3/4 ounce weight. By God, if you run over a pebble, you're going to know it.
No, I agree
like
with you.
that.
I agree with you there, but I'm talking about putting a knot to your connection.
Oh yeah, no, I'm tying to a swivel. Yeah, I'm not doing that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you know, on a long cast, you got no stretch on the braid, so you're going to get a hook a little bit better. That's the other thing. But you gotta have a softer rod, or you're going to rip that hook right out too. So you got to compensate a little bit. Yeah, I don't know. I really try to keep it simple.
I think that's Ron was talking about that earlier. I think that's a underutilized bait. I don't throw a rattle trap though a lot. I'm a red eye shad is the majority of my arsenal. Now the one bait that I want to get a couple of is the Lucky Craft, the LV.
Yeah.
I think it runs just a skosh deeper, and it runs more nose down than that red eye shad does. So I think it'll come through that grass a little bit better.
Well, I like that. Well, now it's Booyah. It used to be Excalibur.
Mm-hmm. That's a really good one.
I still have several of those Excaliburs, and that might be my favorite.
Is there a difference in the Excalibur and the Booyah?
I thought it was made after that.
I can't really say, to be honest. I haven't thrown the Booyah enough to be able to say I really know. So I'll withhold judgment on that. I don't know. The one thing I will say is the old original rattle trap, you know, with all the advent of all the different brands, the rattle trap itself was kind of forgotten about a little bit. And it has, just like everything else, it's got a little different sound to it. And depending on which one you get, and the old rattle trap will still catch fish. And the other little thing on that, for me anyway, you know, fishing that trap or rattle bait, whatever, lipless in this cold water, I don't fish it slow. I reel it in, and you know, unless I'm trying to get the bait down to hit some weeds or something, I'm not trying to like be subtle with it in the wintertime in the cold water. I seem to, when they bite it, man, they bite it.
And usually when they get it too.
Oh yeah, it's usually way in there. Yeah.
You change your hooks on those?
I used to, not anymore, really. The production hooks aren't too bad, so I'm kind of lazy about the hook changing thing. Most production hooks are pretty sharp anymore. Now, 20 years ago, when everything came with a steel hook, I mean, we spent 30 minutes a day filing hooks, but now stuff's pretty sharp. Now the one hook
when's the last time you filed a hook?
A couple weeks ago. I still file one.
Okay.
Yeah. What was the hook the treble hook that rotated?
Excalibur.
Was that an Excalibur?
Yeah.
Well, no, the Excalibur was the one that was twisted.
Yeah, it was twisted.
Yeah.
All the hooks were offset.
Yep.
Now, I liked that. I felt like I could get another hook in a fish once I got one going with that hook. I've still got some of my old traps with those hooks in there. I don't know if they still make them or not.
Here's a good tip from Doug.
I want to talk about this too.
The rattle trap bounces off wood a lot better than most does. So,
yeah, Doug throws the trap a lot.
an old school trap.
Because it runs like this running through the water.
I would assume so.
Yeah,
Yeah.
nose down, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. I forgot to mention this a while ago.
Oh, go ahead.
In the what's in my mailbox thing. I've been fishing this a little bit lately, and I have to say it's decent line for the price point. It's like $10. Baitworks had it 20% off a while back, and I bought like 3 or 4 spools of this stuff. I've been throwing it on a shaky head. I tied some 8-pound tests, and that's usually where you find out how good a line is. You start dragging it around in that rough stuff. A lot of the cheaper line kind of deteriorates. It doesn't have that abrasion resistance, but this stuff does pretty good in rough stuff, even in light line sizes. Usually you start getting down there around 10-pound tests and in a line that's not that good, and it'll definitely reveal itself. But everybody out there on the chat, and anybody tried this stuff, and if so, what do you think about it? I'm happy with it. I mean, it's like $10. Moving baits for sure, but I've been dragging it around a little bit, and it seems to be pretty good.
Cool.
Yeah.
A little fishing trivia. Did you guys know that the Guinness Book of World Record rattle trap collection is in Carterville, Illinois?
Did not know that.
Swear to God, Google that. Fred Washburn's grandson, Fred and his grandson, Fred was a lure collector, and they put together a rattle trap collection that was so massive that Rattle Trap named a color. I believe Scotty Edwards could probably chime in here. I believe it was named after Fred's grandson, but it's in the Guinness Book of World Records. The Guinness Book of World Records greatest rattle trap collection is in Carterville, Illinois. That is a fact.
Huh.
Have you seen it?
Kind of cool. Yeah, I've seen parts of it. I haven't seen the whole thing. I don't be like going through you'd have to like take 30 minutes to look at all of it. But yeah, but there's stuff online about it. You can Google it and read about it.
Huh.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
What about Baldwin? You ever fished Baldwin?
I have not.
I fished it once, and it was in the middle of summer, and it's the first time I've ever seen 101 degrees on my depth finder water temp.
Oh God!
It was 101.
It was right out of the discharge.
So once the water temp on your graph goes above 100, it doesn't do the point anymore. It doesn't do like 100.7. It just stays whole numbers like 100, 101, 102.
Danger, Will Robinson.
Yeah, but I keep forgetting about that lake. I know
it's real shallow, right?
It's got some deep water out in the middle, but yeah, it's got really flat banks. I mean, you'll be like 2 casts off the bank and you're still in 4 foot of water.
Okay.
Yeah, kind of like Wren, kind of like crab a little bit, but even shallower than that. It's got riprap pretty much around most of it. Not a lot of points, somewhat featureless, just kind of like a big bowl. But it's got some fish in it.
Good for you, Doug.
It's got some fish in it.
Doug's headed to walk tomorrow. He's gonna make his shoulder sore.
Heck
And
yeah,
I owe Doug an apology. Doug, I apologize. We were supposed to go fish, and you were supposed to boat ride with me while you were healing up, and then I got caught in the middle of when my boat was going to go to the shop for that new motor, and I couldn't commit to anything, so I apologize. But we'll get on the water.
So I talked to you yesterday, right? Yeah, I was at your house yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
So do we have like 9 or 10 hours on that new motor today?
No, we've got 3 and some change.
Okay. You got out today.
3 and some change. Yeah, I got out today for a little bit. I got it over 3 hours, which was important because at 3 hours I could get it up to 4,000 RPM, which means I could run around. And you still got to vary the speed and all that. But I stopped and fished for like 30 minutes. I'm like, what am I doing? I got to get this over with. It's killing me.
How many more hours until you can open or wide open? Is it 10 hours?
I got to get to 4 hours. At 4 hours, I can open it up, and then I just can't run it full speed for more than 5 minutes. So I'm kind of on the downhill slide in another hour. And then I think it's after 10 hours I get the oil changed. So
you can't run full speed at Egypt anyway, technically.
Well, you're not supposed to, no.
Right.
No. So anyway, I did that until, as you guys know, my grandson had a basketball game in Carterville. So I did that till I broke in the boat till, I don't know, 3:30. I put it on the trailer. I grabbed my John boat and I took my John boat to Harrison's. There you go.
It's 200 yards, Kevin.
That's pretty good stuff right there. Not bad diameter either.
Yeah. It's worth it.
That's a good price.
It's a decent line. It really is.
Yeah. So I took my John boat to Harrison's and they're gonna do the changeover for the lithiums and forward facing sonar and all that, and hopefully I haven't done spending money for a while, but probably not.
Oh, you're not. You're
not. I know.
You were trying to spend my money yesterday.
Well, that part's easy. It's your money.
Yeah, how was the boat show? Garrett says was Uncle Ron at the Marion Boat and Fishing Show.
It was really fun. It was of course we haven't had it for a couple of years because of all the COVID stuff. It was good. I was driving to drop my John boat off at Harrison's, and a customer who we thought we had sold a boat to was driving the other direction with the boat that we sold him. So he picked it up today, and that made 3 boats that we sold at the sports show. So that's pretty darn good. And there was people milling around for a small show. I thought it was good. It was a good turnout, and I think people that were there had a good time. It wasn't anything like Collinsville or anything like that, but I think it got helped out by the fact that the weather leading into the show hadn't been that good, so people hadn't been able to get out. So it was something to do, and I bought a bunch of spinner baits that I didn't need, but I'm glad I have them, and it was fun. I enjoyed it. I really did. And it's free. It's free to get in. People can come and walk around with their family, and it doesn't cost anything to get in.
Yeah, I didn't either until I walked through the door and there was nobody there. I didn't know if that was a Sunday deal or if it was just a deal in general. Free. But yeah, it was. I think it was well worth the drive over for us. We got to hang out, got to see some pretty cool stuff and chat with some old friends and deliver some bourbon.
Yeah, 50-cent jig.
Yeah, that was good too.
Bad. There's a big difference in a 50-cent jig and a LOB jig from
$6 jig, $7 jig,
$7 jig, and then the block-it jig is what,
$10? Yeah.
Yeah, the 50-cent jig doesn't hurt when you break it off.
Who's got a 50-cent jig?
Apparently at the boat show.
Yeah, I didn't see those.
Not either.
I don't need any more jigs, but I would.
You probably that's because Garrett bought them all. You didn't have a chance to see them. He sucked them all up.
Don't blame him for that price.
Yeah, here we go. Colby Baker. Hit those 50-cent jigs and $2 spinner rates.
I guess that must have been over at
Hog Collar.
Lucker Lure. I think Ron's frozen.
Andy Leonard says stopped at Dunn's after the Marion Boat Show. They have a big selection. I don't think I've been to the Dunn's in Marion. I've been to the one in Peevely.
Yep.
And
they have a really good selection of of everything. That
Duns.
yeah.
It's a cool place. It's a cool place. I got a lot of but they have some niche stuff too that you can't just get anywhere. Like a Ledge Rock, that company out of Table Rock area. That's the company that I believe bought the old modes for the Guido bug.
Okay. They got a lot of unique stuff in there that's local to us at least.
Right. Yeah, Kobe says the Lunker Lure folks are good to talk to as well.
Absolutely. And there was a couple private guys in there that pour their own stuff and make their own jigs, which, hey, that's great. I like seeing guys out there grinding it out like that. So there was a guy there from Montana, I believe, and he had some really killer looking spinnerbaits.
Huh.
So he had a 2.5 ounce spinnerbait.
Holy yeah.
Had a blade on it, like
musky bait.
That it was crazy. So
what's this? Andy says, I asked the guy at the Baitworks booth at Knoxville if the block it jigs work good on live scope. LOL, he didn't get it at first.
No, those are invisible on live scope, Andy. There's some sort of special coating. That's why they're so expensive. Is you throw them out there with live scope and they just disappear. So
I don't know, man. I never thought I'd buy a $25 jerkbait either, but I do have a couple of them.
Yeah. Don't even blink about it anymore.
I know.
I tell you what, it started off with the Lucky Craft though, right? Like Lucky Crafts were $15, $16. It's like, man, that's gonna hurt. And then
I thought I was nuts.
Now when I bought my first Mega Bass, I was like, ooh, that hurts, but I don't bat an eye when I buy Lucky Crafts.
The thing about a jerkbait is you're not dragging it on the bottom. A lot of times you're fishing it in open water. There's specific situations where you might be bumping it on cover, but generally it's an open, and a lot of times if it breaks off, it may slowly float up.
Well,
possibly.
So I flinch at
unless it's a stunner, then it's gonna sink.
I flinch at a $25 swim bait or glide bait or something like that. But when it comes to a $25 jerkbait, it's like, yeah, here's my money, just take it. Yeah. I don't understand the
but I can't do a $10 jig yet.
Oh gosh,
I can't do a $10 jig.
No.
I can't do a $7 jig. You know, I can't quite do it yet. Somebody proved me wrong, but as of now, I mean, the Mega Bass is it's a good bait. I mean, you kind of get what you pay for. It does work. There's other jerkbaits that work really well too. There's
a reason why Mega Bass can get away with selling for $25. And keep in mind, guys, we started this show talking about how things have gone up and gone up and gone up. Mega Bass has been $25 since I was in college.
Yeah, they haven't changed. That's a good point.
They haven't changed.
Yeah,
and they don't typically have any kind of promotions.
So
they're always
a good way to convince your wife. They've been getting cheaper with inflation.
That's right. I'm buying the bargain bin.
That's exactly right.
They're practically giving them away at this time.
Colby guy, yeah, the Montana guy's spinnerbaits are really cool. I did the exact same thing. He said he had some pretty cool swim bait heads. That's actually a do-it mold. Fun fact. So you can buy that mold. Now, granted, you have to paint them like he does, but you can pour those yourself.
Andy's talking about those waterwood crankbaits. Yeah, those are
those were at the Jig Shack.
Bass U, I think, is hooked up with them. I know they do some waterwood crankbait giveaways. I'm pretty sure that's the company that they're with. I've heard them talking about that the last month or so. And
I'm with
John,
you.
There ain't nothing wrong with the Rogue,
John.
Dude. I broke out some Rogues last year to try them out, and I had a pretty good day on them. They're a little tricky to throw, but
I got mad at myself. I forgot my Rogues the other day when I went to the lake.
It's a good bait, especially right now when that water's in the low 40s. That's when it seems like the Rogue shines.
The old Rogue roll.
And interesting fact, I tested a bunch of those jerkbaits using my forward-facing sonar just to see how deep they would dive. And the Rogue has a really big return. It has a really good flash.
Really?
The oldest jerkbait out there, but yeah, it put off a nice
Glow.
strong beam, a nice glow. So I
Yeah.
thought that was pretty cool. You know,
Now,
It's that side to side, whatever it does.
were you throwing that on a bait caster, or were you throwing that on a?
I was throwing it on a bait caster,
Okay.
but I blew it up the first 2 times I threw it because I threw the Stunna, and then I threw the Mega Bass, and I threw the 6 cents, and then I picked up the Rogue, and it just stopped. It just kind of went halfway, and it just stalled out, and then kind of landed, and my reel just kind of. I knew it was going to happen.
Right. You
Yeah.
just got to get used to that.
Yeah, it wasn't super bad, but yeah, I had to pull out about 10 or 15 yards of line.
A professional overrun.
Professional overrun. That's what I call it. Anyway.
So, Ron, I noticed you had I was standing by your boat. Now, do you throw a jerkbait on a spinning rod or a bait caster primarily?
Both.
Okay.
But I prefer, if I have my choice, I'm going to throw it on a spinning rod.
Really? Now,
my choice,
elaborate.
I'll elaborate on the bait caster first. I throw it on a bait caster mostly when I'm really having to hit a target, like specific edge of the weeds. If I'm fishing, you know how you'll rub a jerkbait down the bark of a lay down. I want the jerkbait or the bait caster for casting control in general. And or if I'm hooking fish around heavier cover and I need to be able to lean on them a little bit. I mean, you can only lean on a jerkbait so much, but you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
But if I'm in any other situation where I can get away with a spinning rod, I much prefer a spinning rod, and I prefer mono. I tested all the lines this winter on forward-facing sonar, and the monofilament by far casts better than any of the other lines. And I tried the cranking fluoro. I tried all of it. And the mono simply casts better. And in cold weather, it's important. And that the distance I can get with a cast will make up. I'll still get the same depth on the jerkbait because of the length of the cast. The fluoro will get a bait deeper. One thing Gabe and I talked about, we were testing these jerkbaits, and I always associated thinner line diameter with getting a bait deeper, and that's still generally true, but that's not exactly true with the jerkbait. To a point, I can get a bait a little deeper with 10-pound fluorocarbon compared to, say, 8-pound fluoro, just because of that, because the fluoro sinks and it slowly pulls that bait down. So I will actually sometimes go to the bait caster now when I need to get a bait deeper, because I can use that 10-pound. I usually throw 10-pound on my bait caster. I can get that bait deeper with that fluorocarbon. I can let that bait really sink. And but anything else, I'll throw a spinning rod whenever I can.
So, fluorocarbon on a bait caster, though, correct? Not mono.
Yes.
On a bait
Right.
caster.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
To get that bait down. I think the way I work a bait, I think I impart the action better with a spinning rod. I don't overwork the bait. I can move the rod a lot and not really move the bait a lot, especially with mono. And that soft rod with the soft mono, you get one pegged, it's not coming off. It just hardly ever, they don't come off, because it's just like a rubber band. They can't get any leverage on you. And if you're in open water, they're not going anywhere.
Yeah, and it's cold. You just let them.
Yeah.
Let them do their thing.
Just let them do their thing and just relax. Take your time and act like you've been there before, and you'll catch most of those fish. You will.
What mono are you throwing? Brand?
Yeah, I used to be a trialing guy growing up, but this new Sunline mono, the super mono, that is some wonderful monofilament, and I'm throwing the 8-pound. I like the green. That I don't know how important that is, but the Sunline Super Mono is fantastic. I can cast that like a dream. It's really good in super cold weather. It doesn't coil up. It's not as, limp as braid, but it doesn't coil up. It's smooth. It seems to be pretty abrasion resistant for mono. And I really like it.
So no memory issues?
No.
Okay.
And here's the deal. When you put fishing line, now braided doesn't matter because braid doesn't have memory. But on mono or fluorocarbon, make sure when you're spooling that line on your reel that the line is coming off counterclockwise. And most manufacturers make the line to come off of spool line counterclockwise labeled up. Okay. It's probably, I've only seen it a few times where the line doesn't come off counterclockwise with the label up. And do that. And don't over spool it. And then the other key was, probably everyone knows this, but when you start fishing, never close the bail with your reel handle. Always close the bail with your hand. And don't reel over your drag. So if you got a fish on, and you got your drag set right in that little sweet spot, where the fish runs, your drag will go. That's the other advantage. Spinning a drag system on a spinning reel is far superior to drag on a bait casting reel. Don't reel over your drag, because every time you turn the handle, you're putting a revolution a twist into your line. And you follow those simple rules, you'll never have a problem with spinning.
I think a little bit of memory when you're talking about a spinning reel is okay, because if you don't,
it has to be the right memory though. It has to be you're not fighting the spool.
Right.
Yeah.
But a little bit of memory helps keep it on the spool.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
So
yeah. And I'll be doing sometime here soon. I'm going to do another test with the jerk baits and the live scope thing, and I want to rig up some mono, with the exact diameter as the fluorocarbon.
Yeah,
that'd
be good to see.
I'm going to test the mono and the fluorocarbon and
side by side.
Same
water conditions.
Yep. Yeah. Same water conditions and same jerk bait, same exact setup, just to see. I mean, I'm thinking.
And Gabe's seen the spinning rod and the jerk bait work. It'll catch.
I've netted several fish.
I don't doubt that it will. I have a shoulder issue, so I don't throw a spinning rod a lot. So,
well, and that's the other thing. I've got. I'm not looking for sympathy, believe me, but my elbows freaking kill me from all the years fishing, and that spinning rod is so much easier. And then if you got one arm that starts to hurt, you can just flop the reel handle on the other side and throw it with the other arm. It's super easy. Yeah, it makes a difference on that.
It's worse for me because when I use a spinning rod, my right hand goes numb.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I got a jacked up shoulder on my right side. Oh. So if I throw a spinning rod too much and I haven't been to the chiropractor enough, about 30, 45 minutes, my hand's numb, and that does you no good when you're trying to feel a bite. So
no, and especially when it's cold.
Yeah. So I just become really proficient with a bait caster.
There's nothing wrong with that. There's no right way or wrong way. It's just
let's pick out one flipping bait for
this time of the year,
for early spring.
And then flipping bait.
Yeah, flipping bait, and then we'll give away the hoodie from Hook and Needle, and we'll call it an evening. I can go first if you guys want, or do you want to go first, Ron?
You go first, Gabe.
Okay. It's our show. So I know this is probably a little bit different from what the other guys are going to say, but something that I really like to throw around all the time, but especially in the spring, is this is a Tube by Crocagator. Something about a tube.
Yeah. Something about a tube?
Yeah.
Something about a tube. It gets you all hot and bothered. Is that what you're
He
telling
got
me?
all excited.
It's my
didn't he?
soft spot, man.
Woo-wee. I
Man.
didn't know that you were sensitive to the tubes.
Tubes are like, it's a personal deal. I have a personal relationship with tube. But flipping it around Texas rig, I like to do the stupid tube. I've rigged these up before on the stream, but there's some new people in here, so I'll rig one up real quick. So you've got a 3/16 ounce head, got this kind of kale style hook on there, and you just come in the cavity like this. And I'm gonna get salt on my keyboard, so I have to do it back here.
Here, let's hold on. Let's do a
little preventative care.
Yeah.
Because these suckers are salt. There you go. That's a good idea, man. So you just take that hook point, run it down the center of that tube, and you want to leave about 1/4 of an inch from the head of that tube for your hook point to come through, because that's going to be space that you need for this lead to go in there. So you're just going to pop her through like that.
Show them where you came out at on that. That's super important there.
About right there.
Yeah.
So you need to leave a little bit of space for the actual lead part of the jig head to get up there. If not, it's going to get all crooked. And another important thing is, before you pull this lead into the cavity, you want to make sure that you don't have any tentacles down inside the cavity. They have a tendency to get pulled down in there. So if you've got any, you kind of just pull them out. And then I'm going to put some old fashioned
I was wondering
on
if
there.
I was the only one that
you got to lube it, man. You got to lube it. And then you just grab the hook right here and just pull it down. Keep going with it. It's actually making some noise. It's kind of cool. So then you get to this point right here and you take your fingers and just push. And that's going to allow that line tie to come through the top. So that's what it looks like right there. And then I'm going to hold it vertical again. And I'm just going to Texpose it. You're going to go in like this. Come through. And that's a stupid tube. And what I'll do is I'll take some needles, pliers, and I open this gap up, because this kale style hook is pointing back in way too far. It's hard to get it. If you get a fish hooked, he's not coming off, but it's hard to get a fish hooked. So I'll take my needle nose pliers and I'll bend this up to where it's parallel with the line tie. I mean, you can see it's down quite a bit. And then you don't even have to really skin hook this, but I'll just barely skin hook it. And I throw this thing on like 15-pound tests. A 7-foot medium heavy rod is perfect. Just a 7-to-1 gear ratio reel. This is something that you would fish any place you're going to throw a jig or a shaky head. It skips phenomenal. If you're on a lake that has docks, this thing it'll just disappear up underneath the dock. I mean, it really skips good. It's got a different action than a Texas rig tube does. It has a tendency to spiral a lot more, but it comes through cover really, really good. And another thing that makes this thing unique compared to just a Texas rig with a bullet weight is when it's coming across the bottom, a bullet weight has a tendency to just kind of slide over stuff. The way this is kind of blunt right here, and it wants to grab, and then it wants to kind of do this as it's going over cover. And so these tentacles kind of look like a crawfish, and you can actually just kind of pull on it, and it'll kind of do this. When you feel it get hung up on a rock or a piece of wood, if you just kind of pull it and let it fall, it'll actually do this without coming over the cover. So it's really got that defensive posture of a crawfish. And that, to me, that's what makes this thing unique compared to any other bait out there, is that way that it sticks, and it has a tendency to just kind of rise up like that.
What hook is that, and what size is it?
Well, this is a 3/0, and unfortunately, these are poured by a guy named Charles up in Indiana. He has a mold that he made. He took a Dremel tool. He was in the market trying to find the exact stupid tube jig head, and he couldn't find one. So he bought a Do It mold, and he made some modifications with like a Dremel tool. And this is a weight that he pours. He doesn't sell them. He's sent me a couple batches over the years. there is a company called, I think, 4x4. If you guys hit me up on
got their
Instagram
spinners.
or Facebook, and I can send you a picture of it. I think the company's 4x4 or something. They make a tube head that's very similar to this. The problem that you'll have, if even the stupid tube head, that the original stupid tube head, it's kind of a teardrop, and it has a tendency to tear the tube, in my opinion. So I think the best one is a round piece of lead versus a teardrop piece of lead. I guess it has to do with the size of the cavity in the tube too. But unfortunately, these are just something a friend of mine made, and
he won a lot of money on Kentucky
he won
Lake.
a lot. Yeah, he won a lot of money when he was fishing on the Coalinger side. He was in the All-American quite a bit, and most of his high finishes came on a stupid tube. So it's a killer bait any time of the year. Spring, obviously, when the crawfish start getting out and moving, it's going to come into play.
I'll add one thing to your stupid tube, because as you know, I throw it a lot as well.
Sure.
So there's nothing there that the fish really feel besides the hook. So when you do get a bite, they're not feeling a weight. It's not thumping off it's not a tungsten weight thumping off the top of their roof of their mouth, or a big 4 or 5/0 EWG hook. So it's super subtle. So what I've noticed a lot with the stupid tube is when they do grab it, you don't have to just jack them right away. A lot of times you'll pull it away from them if you do that, because they're still just trying to get it in their mouth. But I've let them swim with a stupid tube in their mouth for 15, 20 seconds before I hit them, just to see how long they would hold on to it. And they will hold on to this a heck of a lot longer than they would a Texas rig or a jig, especially that time of the year. The one problem, one other thing that I do is, Gabe talked about opening the hook up. What I do is I run that hook in and out of that tube plastic a little bit to kind of open that up a little bit. So when you do get a bite, you get a little kind of wore out cushion there, if you will. So you get a little more bite on that hook, because as we know, the fish's mouths are a little bit tougher this time of the year when we start getting into that early spring flipping shallow cover stuff. It's harder to get a good hook in them. So that's my tips on the stupid tube. But
yeah,
that's good.
That's good stuff, man. And I usually touch the tentacles, just the very tip of the tentacles, with some chartreuse, spike it. I think that makes a big difference. Not so much on that one, actually, because it's got the blue on there. But yeah, I'll still put some like right in here, just kind of halfway down.
Yep. I like it.
So that's it. What about you, Ron? What's if you had to pick one flipping bait, what would you go with?
Well, I think the thing about spring and cold water, especially early, is you don't want a lot of action. That's the thing. You don't want a bunch of flapping arms. To me, the original beaver is hard to beat for that reason. There's not a whole lot of goofiness going on. And I think that bait is kind of in its element that time of year. And I'll usually have one tied up next to just a regular old jig, like I was talking about, my black or purple jig. And you got those two, a jig and a beaver, tied on this time of year, you got a lot covered.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
What about you?
I like a beaver style, but we've talked about it on here before. It's no secret. I throw a Texas rig crawl tube. So big bite makes a really, really good one.
Yeah.
And it's a ritual. About every other year I buy a couple hundred of them. So it's
Wilkins.
It's my favorite bait.
That's my college buddy.
You got some secret ponds?
Well, they're not secret. So my job in college, since I never went to class, was to take all my college buddies fishing. And before we had boats, you know where the old visitor center is on 148. There's a pond back there. You could walk in, and we would go to, well, Cooksey's is closed now, but we'd go to Cooksey's and get a bucket of minnows, the biggest ones he had, we'd have on old tennis shoes that you didn't mind getting muddy, and we'd go wading. And you'd tie that bucket of minnows onto your belt loop, and you'd go wading out into these ponds, and we'd just throw on a cork these minnows, and it was a hoot. That was fun. We caught a bunch of fish, and I think my buddy.
It was simpler though, wasn't it?
Huh?
That was simpler time, wasn't it?
Oh, it was wonderful. And there's a few different ponds. I won't mention all of them, but I take my buddies in there, and I guess it's a good thing they're still talking about it 35 years later. Yeah. So.
Did you guys
Wilkins
ever?
is a good dude.
You guys ever see any like Sasquatch footprints or any signs of the Squatch, the Bigfoot himself, back there in your college days? Because it wasn't as populated back then. I mean, he could kind of had free range back in the day.
When back then, you never knew what you're going to run to out in the woods, and yeah. So I saw some strange things in the woods. I can't say I ever saw Sasquatch, but I've had the hair on the back of my neck stand up a few times. I will say that.
Yeah. There's a really good podcast. I think I sent it to you, but it's on the Confessionals. Tony Merkel has a podcast. It covers everything, a little bit of everything, but there's a guy who is he's retired now, but he was a deputy sheriff. And this happened in Land Between the Lakes. He was from Tennessee, and right on the Tennessee-Kentucky border, they were turkey hunting, him and a buddy of his. This is like in the early 90s, I believe. And they had a dog man and Sasquatch sighting. This episode is within the last couple of weeks. Whether you're, it's not about whether you believe or not, whether you're interested in it or that kind of thing.
It's good storytellers.
It's good storytelling,
Yeah.
and this is a really good one. It's not going to be like a waste of your listening time. I promise you that. It's very interesting.
With everything that I listen to, and I've listened to a lot of stuff, and like Gabe said, it's not about if you believe or if you don't believe. It's when I tell somebody this, the first thing is like, oh, it's just a bunch of dumb rednecks. It's like, no, these are like college educated folks that truly can tell a story. It's like having Dion on here and he's telling us fishing stories. It's the same, someone that keeps you engaged. And if you want to be engaged on a long trip and you get 2 or 3 hours to kill and you need a podcast to listen to,
yeah,
obviously listen to what we do. But my goodness, if you want to get outside the box and hear some good stuff, we killed a 9. My wife and I made it's 8-9 hours to Gulf Shores from Cape, and I made it with 1 fuel stop and 1 bathroom break.
Listen to Sasquatch Chronicles.
Listen to Sasquatch Chronicles with my wife, because
That's
we were
pretty
both
cool.
we were both engaged with it. It was just good stories. We got the right sequence of 3 or 4 of them, and before you know it, we were home.
And if it's dark, you don't want to get outside.
No,
the car.
don't.
You don't want to slow down. You don't want to get outside the car.
I made the mistake of listening to one on the way to duck hunt one morning, and that was it made the morning a little more spooky. Because I was by myself that morning.
There's a lot of people that are great storytellers that have Sasquatch stories.
Absolutely.
Whether it's true or not, I don't know. I'd have to see one to believe it 100%. But they're good stories. But that the Confessionals podcast, the LBL Land Between the Lakes dog man sighting is worth your time. Trust me, it's a pretty really good story actually. So we got a winner.
I can listen to that while I'm breaking in my motor.
You should.
Right.
Yeah, you
that's
should.
right.
Yeah. You're right out in the middle of the lake.
Well, there's plenty of houses around. If you get a little scared, you can run on back. So
we got a winner. Drake,
Right.
get a hold of me at Gabe Montgomery Fishing, or 10 Horse Monty on Facebook, or 10 Horse Monty 6, or Gabriel Monty at hotmail.com if you don't do the socials. Send me your shipping information and I'll get that over to Dustin.
is that Longstaff?
Yeah, Drake Longstaff. Also, if you go and check out Hook and Needle, check out the Facebook page. Use the code THM10 if you find something you like. That'll save you 10%. I got some pretty cool hats in there, some t-shirts, some hoodies and stuff. He's just getting going. Local guy, fish head, just like all of us. Show him some love if you're looking for something a little different. He's out there. And let's see, what's that? You need to try to get Ken Duke.
I haven't got to listen
Big
to any
Bass
of his
podcast
stuff yet.
sometimes.
So
He's really good. Yeah, Ken Duke's a wealth of knowledge. Geez,
Yeah,
he's a historian.
I
listened to a couple of those.
Are they good?
Yeah, they're all right.
I figured they would be.
They're decent. You have to be in the right mood, to get into.
Well, so I hate to say it, but I'm behind, and I'm one that when I listen to BTL or any of them, I like to listen to them in order. And I'm still in January. I don't know what happened. I missed a day or something, and I am so far behind on my BTLs.
Ken's good. I've listened to him several times on BTL. He's good. He was with, what was his position with BASS? What was his deal there?
He's a writer.
He's a writer?
Yeah, he was a writer, and God, there was something else. I can't remember what it was.
I don't know. But he's super knowledgeable. He's like a historian of fishing.
Yeah, he's a stats guy. He's got all that stuff worked out.
It's all up here too. It's not like he's got to look any of that up. It's all in his brain.
Yeah. He's pretty sharp.
You get Panger and you get those two on a podcast.
They get fired up too, don't they?
They know.
When Jeffries was on there, man, they were always getting on a big.
Yeah, they've got a lot of history. They've been around for quite some time. I guess that's it. We'll wrap this up.
It was a good show.
Yeah. Thanks for hanging out with us, Ron.
Enjoyed it. Yeah, no, thank you. And as always, I apologize for my internet. They're running new fiber optics out here, so hopefully soon my internet will be solved.
Yeah, it's good. When it's here, it's good. Like right now, it's great. So it's no big deal. Also, you see on the ticker there, Baitworks. Check out Baitworks if you're looking to buy some spring tackle. Most of the stuff we talked about here tonight is going to be at Baitworks, and you can use the code THM10. It'll get you 10% off your first order. It's a great way to give back to the channel and show support to the channel. Baitworks is a brick and mortar store down in Springfield, Missouri, but they also have a really good online shop. So have a look if you haven't checked them out. Go give them a look. Appreciate that. Let's see. Kevin says we might as well all three get them, while we're at it.
Oh no, I'm clean. I don't have.
You're clean.
I'm clean.
You have virgin skin.
That's right. My daddy told me to cut them off.
I'm too much of a sissy to. Tattoos hurt, so I'm too much of a sissy.
They only hurt for like 10 minutes, and then everything goes numb.
But if you don't get them, then it doesn't even hurt for 10 minutes.
That's true. Solid point. Solid point. All right, we're out. See you guys next Monday. Appreciate everybody for hanging out with us. And until next time.
See you guys.